Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 280, what seems to be the second last episode of this Game of Death arc. So this episode was mainly about the sort of final twists and turns ahead of the, I suppose, big reveals that we're probably going to get in the next episode. In terms of like progression, we didn't actually progress too much because we still were basically in the middle of the end of the previous game. So we didn't see anything else with Oga necessarily. So the focus was completely here on Boruto confronting Kizaru, and then the others actually making the decision to come back out onto the field and help Boruto with this. And all the reveals sort of came out as they sort of hunted down Kizaru, and he dropped a scroll that revealed his mission. We did get a little bit more information on the Sarada, Mitsuki, Kawaki side of things as they met some Leaf Anbu members who were also investigating the same thing. And we basically at the same time get the big reveal that Kizaru isn't who we think he thought he was based on the previous episodes. He actually is a Leaf Anbu member, part of this investigation team, who is undercover in this game as a Kara outer, confirming that the overall game is a Kara thing at its core. So that's going to be interesting. I guess that confirms Oga is Kara in some way, whatever way they're actually going to do the reveal on that. That seems to be the way that that's working. So what we're now sort of waiting for here, based on the reveals that we got here, are that, okay, the other big one is Kizaru at the end of the episode, quote unquote, kills Boruto and reveals that, you know, basically this is an illusion. This isn't real. And so Boruto gets stabbed, he dies, and then I'm not sure what exactly happens here in terms of, like, is it a genjutsu release or does he, like, heal him as he dies? And this leads to Boruto not just coming out of this genjutsu and being left in the sort of kind of container that he's put in. Instead, Boruto actually gets out of the full thing and is able to see that every single person who is in the game is being held in one of these pods in this genjutsu, and the basic idea seems to be that this is this sort of video game isekai type thing, kind of like SAO, Sword Art Online. It's sort of unclear if it is necessarily the thing where if you die in the game, you die in real life, and if Boruto has somehow managed to avoid that by what happened with Kizaru, or he just happens to be the only one who actually is released, and everyone else is considered dead in the game, but they're actually still being kept alive in the pods. It's probably going to be the case, just because I can't imagine they've killed all of these characters, because in this episode we basically see, I guess, the death of Namua, and I think Shamo, even though I don't think they ever really come back to confirm he died. He has what effectively feels like a death scene, and I think when he looks over at Shamo's pod, his life kind of line is nothing's happening on it, the same as Bata, who we know was actually killed. Which leads into one of the other mysteries in the episode, is that Kizaru reveals that he was not the person who killed Bata. So, if it wasn't Rokuro and it wasn't Kizaru, it wasn't Boruto, it leaves Shamo and Yatsume as being the only, like, candidates unless Oga interfered in the game or there's something else going on. Shamo, I think we can, based on this episode, probably rule out as being anything suspicious, but Yatsume still remains a mystery. Now, there are clear-cut scenes that definitely portray her as being on the right side of things, but there's been a few scenes where it just feels like she's the only one not revealing anything. She's having weird reactions to some of the things happening around her. And then the preview for the next episode seems to suggest that at some point she gets out and either activates whatever her actual abilities are, because I think we've only seen her use some basic jutsu up to now, and it's some sort of a weird possession kind of thing where she kind of transforms in some way. So is that revealing that she is the kind of one ultimately behind all of this? I'm not really sure. And this is where like a lot of the big reveals that will have to come out in the next episode, they're adding up. Like the next episode is going to have to do quite a bit in terms of the conclusion that they come to in this episode is that the whole thing was a genjutsu, which, based on the fact that they're all in like machines and stuff like that, feels a little bit like, is that exactly how it works? Now, it could make sense that like there could absolutely be a Kara member who has some sort of crazy genjutsu ability, given especially what we learned in the manga about like sort of where a lot of the crazy Kara powers come from. You could easily assume that there's some wild genjutsu power that seems like it goes beyond what we've maybe seen from other high-level genjutsu. Or are they just interpreting this weird sort of trapped in a video game kind of type situation as being genjutsu when it maybe isn't? I think the fact that Kizaru apparently used like some sort of a jutsu to help Boruto get out of this maybe confirms that to not be the case, but I don't really know, because, if he did just heal him, that might have had some sort of effect on sort of Boruto's brain, which is being monitored, which woke him up from the being in the game kind of aspect rather than any genjutsu stuff being involved. And I think the few times we've seen Oga sort of appear and disappear, there is a little bit of a weird kind of like digital appearance, disappearance kind of effect going on, but we're going to have to wait and see what exactly they do with it. They added into it with the whole idea that like it is being investigated by like the Leaf Anbu, and they've apparently sent like multiple people in, and that this is something that seems to have had multiple rounds and has gone on for like longer than we maybe think it has. And the whole like don't trust anything was the one bit of information they got out from the one person who managed to get any information out in the first place. So that's an interesting one, because it does leave apparently Kizaru and Yatsume, and I suppose maybe Namwa, because I don't know if they necessarily confirmed he died, but I think the implication was just that as they all got out, he basically died. So is there any significance to Kizaru and Yatsume being the ones left in? Probably, in that I'm guessing maybe Kizaru gets the reveal about Yatsume while in the game, and then everyone is shocked when it happens outside in the real world. But I'm guessing this is where we'll see all of the plots sort of converge. Sarada and the Anbu members will probably arrive at wherever this facility is, and hopefully we'll get the reveals on this, because probably the bigger question is sort of like, okay, this is what's actually happening, but why is a Kara member kidnapping people to put them into a game where they may or may not die in this game in real life? And especially if it is the aim of this game where like they don't die in real life, what is the point of all of this? Is it just the typical thing you expect from this, where the owner, the person running it, just wants to experience entertainment as people think it's real, but doesn't actually want to kill people? But how does that help Kara necessarily? And then you get into the idea of like, does this link into like the whole, especially some of the recent manga reveals with Amado and sort of that sort of technology of like kind of how the mind works and maybe like a digital kind of space and stuff like that? Is this kind of part of that or not? I don't really know, because there's a few connections you theoretically could make, but then you wonder about like, what's with the people involved? Why shinobi from a few different nations, including like a criminal? Why the Fugo guy with the briefcase and stuff like that? What is the aim of all of this? Like, why these specific people in this game? And, why in the first place, basically? So, a lot of questions, and I think it's good that the arc is kind of prompting a lot of questions. Well, you do wonder, with one episode left, can they do it all when it looks like we're going to have a full initial reveal, some sort of a big fight scene, more reveals and resolution? Can they do it all? I'm not really sure, because I think the way the episodes work out is that we do get 281 next week on Christmas Day. There's no episode on 1st of January, New Year's Day. That's a break week. And then we start up on, January 8th with the Sasuke Retsuden arc, or the Sasuke story, the Uchiha and the Heavenly Stardust arc, which is the same thing that they're doing in the manga adaptation that's going on right now. Not entirely sure why they're so obsessed with this particular novel in particular. I guess they just want to draw dinosaurs quite a lot, but that is fun to know. And then I believe we know that is going to last up until some point in February, when we will get the return to manga content with the Code arc. I think this was recently announced at the Naruto panel at Jump Festa. They announced that that's the kind of plan for the anime, is Sasuke novel adaptation arc, Code arc from the manga. And I think they showed a key visual that includes Code and also Ada as well. So that's good, I think, because I think the novel is good. I don't get why it's suddenly of all of them, because it's part of a trilogy. So they've skipped the first book. They seem to be ignoring the third book. They're just focused on the second book, and they're doing a manga adaptation and an anime adaptation of it, when there's so many other novels they haven't done yet. Bit weird, but anyway, it should be good, because the content of that one's actually pretty good, especially if you like Sasuke and Sakura's relationship. So there are most of my thoughts on this episode. It's one of those ones where it's more the reveals that are important rather than the exact kind of contents of the episode. And that, like, okay, Kisaru's fighting style was mainly like fire style jutsu, and there was a couple of cool moments there to highlight him as being a pretty decent threat. But for the most part, this one was very much just a lot of what the characters said and what they say about kind of where the plot is actually going to go. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think is going to happen with one episode left in the arc? What do you think the answers to some of these questions actually are? And also, what are your thoughts on basically us knowing what is next for the next two arcs of Boruto? So that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.